Ashes of Humanity, Chapter 4, Before the Ark, 3 years earlier. Dr. Noah Kepler was halfway through teaching a room of brilliant young people that knowing everything was not the same as understanding anything, when someone in the front row asked a dangerous question.
Could human beings reach another star before they got old?
The room laughed. Not because the question was stupid. At King's College London, questions that stupid rarely survived the first term. They laughed because every student in Lecture Theatre B already had 7 answers waiting behind their eyes. Their links had found them instantly. Chemical propulsion limits, fusion estimates, solar sail speculation, antimatter bottlenecks, wormhole theory, radiation exposure, cryogenic failure rates. A premium academic engine had probably delivered a clean, smug summary. Interstellar travel remained theoretically plausible, but energetically, biologically, and economically constrained. Very neat, very correct, very dead. Noah stood at the center of the amphitheater, surrounded by pale teaching fields. Equations hung in the air. Student annotations floated above desks. Simulation scaffolds folded into the ceiling like dormant weather. The theater still held the bones of the old university. Victorian stone beyond the smart glass. Rain smearing the high windows. Steps worn smooth by generations of ambitious feet. But inside, everything listened. Desks read pulse, eye movement, stress load, and cognitive fatigue. The walls could become the floor of an ocean, the inside of a reactor chamber, or the throat of a collapsing star. Every student carried a link beneath the skin: identity, communication, payments, health permissions, academic records, AI tutors, social feeds, government notices, and every small humiliation of modern convenience. Without one, you could technically function, in the same way you could technically cross the Atlantic in a rowing boat. The poorest students carried debt behind their ears: subscription tiers, academic engine access, simulation credits, memory extension allowances, AI tutor minutes. A country that had once promised education as a public good had learned to charge rent on cognition. Noah hated that. He also used it every day. He smiled, flicked 2 fingers, and pulled the students' AI summaries into the center of the room. 7 answers collapsed into one glowing cloud above the front row.
There. That is what your links think.
The cloud sharpened into bullet points.
Accurate, efficient, lifeless.
Noah looked at the student who had asked the question.
That is also why your links will not be sitting the helix for you.
The room changed, subtly, but Noah noticed. Pulse rates rose in the front tiers. 3 students blinked too quickly. Naomi Bell, second row, stopped smiling. Even jokes bent around the helix. Officially, it was the British Advanced Cognitive and Aptitude Examination, a post-Pearson miracle of meritocratic repair, according to ministers who had never sat it. Unofficially, it was the exam that decided whether a gifted 18-year-old became a propulsion architect, medical systems lead, policy strategist, corporate air apprentice, senior civil analyst, or one of the millions of clever people politely invited to learn that clever was no longer enough. Students called it the British Soon-Young when they wanted to sound dramatic. Older professors called it a sorting hat with a pension scheme. Noah called it an intellectual meat grinder dressed as opportunity. None of that stopped his students wanting to pass.
The helix allows link support.
Of course it does. So does every job you're all trying to get. The question is not whether you can access information. A chair can access information if you give it a polite enough interface.
A few students smiled.
The question is whether you can interrogate it, distrust it, recombine it, and notice when it has given you the right answer to the wrong question.
Noah lifted one hand. The lecture theater vanished. Several students inhaled as the room dropped them 11 kilometers beneath the Pacific. Black water pressed against the amphitheater glass. Submersible lamps sliced through the dark in pale cones. Hydrothermal smoke curled from a fissure in the seabed. Jagged rock rose beneath them, and in the cracks, something glimmered. Violet-white crystal, branching, alive-looking, wrong enough to wake the mind. Noah let silence do its work.
This is from the Hadal Pacific survey, almost 11 kilometers down, where the ocean stops being water and becomes weight.
The Kermadec Formation?
Good. But do not let your link flatter you. It gave you the name. You have not yet earned the meaning.
That felt motivational and insulting.
Then I am teaching at peak efficiency.
The room laughed, grateful for the release. Noah enlarged the crystalline structure until it spread above them like lightning trying to grow roots.
3 years ago, one of the survey probes found an anomalous biomineral formation around hydrothermal fissures beneath the Kermadec trench system. It is not coral, not fungus, not quite mineral either. The working term is photoreactive abyssal lattice, which is a very elegant way of saying we found something weird and have not agreed what it is yet.
Biomineral?
Careful. That word has started fights.
Good fights.
Academic fights, so vicious, petty, and extensively footnoted.
The room laughed again. The sea vanished. Now the students stood inside a containment lab. A sample of the lattice hung in the center of the air. A narrow ultraviolet beam struck it. For half a second, nothing happened. Then the sample lit from within. First faintly, then violently. Energy readings climbed in blue bars beside it. Every link in the room tried to annotate the output at once. Noah felt the data storm gather. Student overlays branching. AI tutors whispering suggested interpretations. Premium engines flagging helix-relevant terms. He snapped his fingers. The overlays froze. A low groan moved through the theater.
No.
You froze our assist layer.
I froze your academic assist layer. Not accessibility, not translation, not medical support. I am annoying, not a monster.
That is barbaric.
That is Tuesday.
This has to violate something.
It does not. I wrote the exemption.
You wrote the exemption.
I was insufferable in committee.
That tracks.
Noah smiled and walked beneath the glowing sample.
Your links can name this. Your AIs can summarize it. Premium Helix Prep can probably generate a passable essay arguing 3 incompatible interpretations before I finish this sentence.
He looked up at the lattice.
But none of that means you understand it.
The room settled.
When exposed to a specific ultraviolet band under controlled conditions, the lattice releases an energy cascade far beyond what its visible mass should be capable of storing. Not heat, exactly, not standard photonic discharge, more like a triggered vacuum yield event at the material interface.
That sounds impossible.
It does.
That is your answer.
It is an excellent answer. Impossible is where science starts taking notes more carefully.
Noah unlocked the overlays again, but only partially. Enough data to think, not enough to hide.
The current theory, and I use that word with all due caution, is that the lattice forms a stable microstructured matrix capable of storing ambient geothermal and electromagnetic potential in ways we do not see in ordinary matter.
Several eyes glazed slightly. Noah saw it happen. Language had become too heavy. Even in 2052, even with links humming beneath the skin, the human mind still had to climb the hill itself.
In English, it may be a naturally occurring energy sponge that got ambitious.
That brought them back. Noah touched the floating sample. The lattice unfolded into rings, chambers, ultraviolet emitters, containment fields, capture loops, thermal vents, and cooling spines.
My theory was simple. Everyone was trying to burn it.
And you were not?
No,
Because you are more ethical.
no. Because I am more annoying.
That got the laugh.
I thought we should teach it to breathe.
The laughter thinned into a tension.
Imagine a stable lattice grown in controlled chambers. UV-triggered discharge. Recyclable energy cycling through staged capture and release systems. Not fuel you burn once and mourn afterwards, but an energy architecture, a reusable high-density power medium with enough output to sustain long-duration propulsion.
The room went properly quiet now. Not sleepy quiet, hooked quiet. Beyond the teaching field, where no student could see, a secondary system woke more fully. It recorded response times, stress curves, question quality, originality markers, conceptual leap rates, ethical risk language, dependence on AI scaffolding, resistance to cognitive automation. Noah did not know that. Nobody in the room knew it except the system and the people who had built the hidden layer beneath the helix. Officially, this was a lecture. Unofficially, every student in the room was being watched by machines attached to a lie that had not yet been given a public name. Arkfall was not public, but Arkfall was already looking for minds.
So we are not talking about a tank. We are talking about a reusable energy heart.
Exactly.
Somewhere beneath the lecture capture layer, Naomi Bell's cognitive profile updated. Noah loved that moment. When somebody got it, and the whole room felt the click.
A chemical rocket carries exhaustion. It spends itself to move. This changes the game. The power source can be cycled, re-excited, regulated, and partially regenerated over long-duration transit. You still need conservation laws, thermal bleed, shielding, failure redundancy, and enough engineering humility to stop yourself becoming a crater. But it stops the voyage being a one-use act of desperation.
Would it be enough for interstellar travel?
The room's assist engines stirred again. Noah felt them offering answers. He ignored them. He could have filled the air with output curves, failure tolerances, containment scale, synthetic growth rates, propulsion geometries, radiation models, and cryogenic support ratios. He remembered every paper, every equation, every margin note. That was the curse people kept calling a gift. But students did not only ask what they asked. Sometimes they asked what they needed permission to hope.
Enough to stop interstellar travel being fantasy and start it being logistics.
That landed. Wonder moved through their faces. Not childish wonder. The better kind. The dangerous kind. The kind that made people choose difficult lives because the universe had briefly looked possible. Noah dimmed the laboratory and restored the old lecture theater. Rain at the high windows. London blurred beyond the glass. The ghost of the Pacific Trench fading in their peripheral vision.
Let me be clear. This does not mean we are nipping off to Alpha Centauri next Thursday. It means that for the first time in a very long time, the energy problem has stopped being a wall and started looking like a door. A very heavy door. Possibly on fire. But a door.
The room laughed.
Could not something like that become a weapon before it becomes an engine?
The laughter softened. There it was. The question every good student eventually found, if they were paying attention.
There is the truly cheerful part of the lecture.
A few people laughed quietly.
Yes. Of course it could. Every powerful energy breakthrough in human history arrives with two invitations attached. One says, build something magnificent. The other says, ruin everything. The species record on which invitation we open first is, admittedly, mixed.
A darker laugh drifted through the theater.
But this is why it matters. Not just speed, not just thrust, endurance, sustained output, the ability to power shielding, life support, fabrication, repair, guidance correction, water recycling, atmospheric regulation, and internal gravity compensation, all from one core architecture that does not simply die after the first impossible push.
London sat beyond the glass. Buses moved through rain. Drones crossed between buildings. Delivery crawlers passed beneath canopy roofs. People lived inside ordinary time. A city still healing from Pearson's cruelty. A city pretending that if it worked hard enough, voted carefully enough, subscribed to the right systems and passed the right exams, the future might forgive it.
One day, human beings are going to cross distances that feel insulting to the imagination. Not because we got braver, not because we got luckier, not because an AI turned the impossible into a digestible summary, because somebody, somewhere, understood the problem well enough that the stars stopped being decoration and became destinations.
No one interrupted. Even the students who usually half hid behind their overlays were listening.
And if any of you become fabulously wealthy off the patents, I expect a very nice bottle of whiskey and at least one building named after me.
Laughter, relief, pulse rates falling across the desks.
Do you think we will actually see it in our lifetime?
There was the real question. Always the real question.
In full? Probably not.
A few shoulders sank.
But I think we may see the moment it stops being absurd.
That brought them back. Noah turned and wrote with one finger in the air. The words formed in pale light above him.
The future is always impossible right up until it is not.
Someone in the front row blink captured it immediately.
Shameless.
You wrote it like a quote.
That is because I am an academic and therefore vain.
The room laughed again. Hidden beneath the lecture environment, a silent profile engine marked 7 students for elevated review.
Naomi Bell, Omar Qureshi, Priya Sandhu, Elliot Marsh, Luca Morgan, Hannah Ives.
And one more name that would later vanish behind a security classification Noah would not see for years. Noah saw none of it. He saw only students. The final minutes passed in a fast, bright exchange. Energy density, reactor stability, containment geometry, synthetic lattice growth, weapon risk, AI hallucination in complex modeling, subscription bias in research access, and the cost of scaling something that had begun at the bottom of the deepest ocean on Earth. By the end, the room was bright with thought. That was what Noah loved about teaching. Not performance, not admiration, though he enjoyed it more than he admitted. It was the alchemy of making something frighteningly large graspable. Making difficult things feel less like walls and more like work. When the lecture ended, it ended the way Noah's lectures always did, in a crush of questions. 3 students came down at once. Their links threw polite cue markers into the edge of his vision. One wanted to know whether the abyssal lattice could destabilize under cosmic radiation. Another wanted access to Noah's restricted reading scaffold on non-chemical propulsion. A third asked whether solving the energy problem simply moved the bottleneck somewhere else.
Yes. That is how progress works. You solve one impossible thing and discover 3 new ones waiting in the corridor.
Noah answered the last question, approved 2 reading requests, rejected 1 AI-generated thesis proposal with the words "absolutely not," and escaped 12 minutes later than intended. Outside Lecture Theater B, the corridor lights had shifted toward evening warmth. Students flowed past in loose clusters. Some spoke aloud. Some whispered through their links. Some laughed at jokes only half the people around them could hear. An accessibility drone guided a student through the crowd. A public wall carried helix countdowns, job placements, political headlines, and adverts for discounted cognitive bandwidth bundles. Ordinary life. Expensive, augmented, unfair, exhausted ordinary life. Noah blinked twice and opened his link queue as he walked. Department notices. Funding complaints. Faculty dinner reminder. Archive subscription warning. Then came one message, with no sender name. Only a black clearance glyph Noah had never seen routed through any university system. It did not sit in his queue. It sat beneath it, as if every ordinary message were temporary. And this one had always been waiting. Please remain on campus. A representative is coming to speak with you. Noah stopped walking.
Oh, for God's sake!
There were very few parts of his life obscure enough to use that kind of routing, and none of them had ever improved his day. He tried to dismiss the message. It remained. He tried to sandbox it. His link refused. That was new and rude. On instinct, he bought a paper cup of coffee from a vending kiosk and sat beneath a public news wall while he waited. The coffee was too hot, too bitter, and somehow still better than every formal catering option in the university. That felt important. The wall cycled through its usual stream. Market drift. Water restrictions in southern Spain. Robotics unrest in Shenzhen. Helix assessment reform protests outside Parliament. Cabinet reshuffle rumors. Climate resilience spending debate. Then, for 3 seconds before it rolled onward, another scientist disappears as questions grow. A grainy image flashed beside the headline. A woman in a dark coat outside some blurred institutional building. No clear details, only concern, investigation, and speculation. Noah barely processed it consciously. A missing scientist. Another one. The sort of story that unsettled for a moment before the world's larger noise buried it again. Still, some part of him noticed. His link pulsed once behind his ear. Not a chime. Not a call. A pressure. The kind of alert the system had been designed to make impossible to ignore. When Noah looked up, a woman stood at the far end of the corridor as if she had stepped out of the architecture. He had never seen her before. She wore dark civilian clothing cut with military severity. No insignia. Yet everything about her suggested a person who did not require insignia to be obeyed. Her coat was rain dark at the shoulders. Her posture was exact. Black hair pulled back neatly. Brown eyes calm, assessing and entirely unimpressed by the world's attempts to waste her time. A pale scar marked the skin near her right temple. Noah's link tried to identify her. For the first time since he had paid for the premium research tier, it failed. Noah disliked her immediately. On principle. She crossed toward him with the calm momentum of someone who had never wandered into a room by accident. Noah stood, leaving the coffee on the bench between them like an object that had suddenly become irrelevant. The woman stopped in front of him and held his gaze for one measured beat.
Dr. Noah Kepler.
It was not a question.
That depends.
On?
Whether this is about the faculty dinner. In which case, no.
For the first time, something almost like amusement threatened the edge of her mouth. It did not survive.
Commander Elara Voss.
She held out a slim black clearance sleeve. It was not a screen. It was worse. A physical authority key, designed to bind itself to his link and drag his civilian permissions into the dark.
Your assignment status has changed.
I do not have an assignment status.
You do now.
That cooled him. Around them, the corridor continued as though nothing had happened. Students passed. Doors opened and closed. The news wall rolled on to energy prices and parliamentary deadlock. Their links hummed beneath their skin, feeding them roots, revisions, gossip. debt reminders, and exam alerts. But Noah's attention had narrowed to the woman before him.
Your current life has ended somewhat earlier than scheduled.
That is an aggressively concerning sentence.
It is the reality of your current situation.
Noah's link updated with classified documents.
You are to be transferred to a classified continuity project site.
I do not have a choice, do I?
No,
The honesty landed harder than a threat would have. Noah glanced around the corridor. Old stone, passing students, vending machine coffee, the ordinary world still pretending it was permanent. Outside the high corridor windows, evening settled over London in blue-gray layers. Far off, 3 dark aircraft cut silently westward through the rain.
When?
Elara's eyes shifted once as her link updated.
now.
Of course.
He picked up his bag. Then he looked at the coffee on the bench. It had already gone cold. Somehow, that annoyed him more than the abduction. After scanning the files on his link, Noah finally accepted his fate, and that he had a role to play. Without another word, he followed Commander Voss into the transport shuttle.